So if you were with us 10 days ago, you heard me speak about telling our origin story and extracting our core values in order to help chart a path forward for ourselves. So in reflecting this past week on my own origin here at Kerem Shalom, I was reminded that these are the 12th High Holy Days that I am privileged to spend with this community. You know what this means, right? You know what this means. What's that? Next year is my bar mitzvah. One more year until my bar mitzvah. Today, I am a man. Oh, no, that's next year. Sorry. So it was on this very night, more than a decade ago, that I spoke about a song that many of us know and love, titled Woodstock by Joni Mitchell. How many people here know this song? Pretty well known and loved. If you don't know it, the song begins with the following words. Well, I came upon a child of God. He was walking along the road, and I asked him, where are you going? And this he told to me, I'm going on down to Yasgur's farm, gonna join in a rock and roll band, gonna get back to the land, gonna set my soul free. And I'm sure, as many of you know, Joni Mitchell was not even actually at Woodstock, but she wrote this song for Crosby, Stills, and Nash. In fact, Joni Mitchell's name wasn't even Joni. She was born Roberta Joan Anderson in Alberta, Canada, on November 7th, 1943. She was stricken with polio at the age of 9, and while recovering in a children's hospital, she began her singing career by singing at the age of 9 to the other patient in the hospital. It wasn't until she relocated to Toronto and married Chuck Mitchell that she began performing under the name Joni Mitchell. And as for Woodstock, Joni Mitchell was scheduled to perform. She was supposed to perform on the Sunday of the festival, but her manager advised her not to go when all of America could see the traffic jams on TV. He was concerned that she would have trouble getting back to the city in time for a major TV appearance on the Dick Cavett Show. Props if you remember the Dick Cavett Show. Still, Joni Mitchell created the definitive chronicle of the festival with her song Woodstock, which eventually became a hit for Crosby, Stills, and Nash. So 10 years ago, a decade ago, I gave a full Yom Kippur Drash on this song, and I focused almost exclusively on the chorus. But in reflecting on the song more recently, however, I found myself thinking less about the narrator and more about the other character in this song, the child of God walking along the road. We don't learn much about this character other than what he tells the narrator in the song. And this he told to me. I'm going on down to Yasgur's farm, gonna join in a rock and roll band. Okay, so far so good. He knows where he's going. Many of us can relate. We do this all the time. We set off on our way towards a specific destination. I'm going off to work at Kerem Shalom. I'm going on down to Whole Foods. I'm on my way to Starbucks or Dunkin', and so on. But then this character said something really interesting in the song. That gotta get back to the land, gonna set my soul free. That's really interesting to me. There's a lot to unpack here, but I'd like to focus on just one aspect of this particular verse. How does he know? How does he know that these actions, going on down to Yasgur's farm, joining in a rock and roll band, getting back to the land, is going to set his soul free? Any thoughts? How did he know this? Well, one possibility is past experiences. Maybe maybe he's done something like this before. We all make choices based on our own past experiences. You did something, you loved the feeling you got from it, maybe you do it again. Here's the thing though, you know this as well as I do. Past experiences does not always guarantee future outcomes. Just because you got a certain feeling when you did something does not guarantee that doing that same thing again will give you that same feeling every time. So back to my question, how does he know that he is going to set his soul free? I mean, maybe he'll go on down to Yadgar's farm, get stuck in the really bad traffic that we just heard about, and never make it to Woodstock at all. Or maybe he'll get there, but he'll camp out, and it'll pour rain, as it did, and he'll wake up in a mud puddle, all of his things will be soaking wet, and he'll be really uncomfortable and unhappy. Or maybe he will eat some of the brown acid and become really paranoid and fearful and have an absolutely miserable time, right? I mean, these are all equally plausible outcomes at this moment in the song. On some level, this character in the song has to know, he has to understand that he doesn't really know what will happen when he gets to Woodstock, if he gets to Woodstock. And as it turns out, he can't actually know that he will set his soul free. And this is true, by the way, for all of us. Am I right? When we set out towards a planned destination, number one, we don't actually know that we will make it there. And number two, we don't actually know in advance if we will have the experience that we are hoping to have when we get there. Given this truth, is it true, first of all? It's an assumption. I think it's true, thank you. Given this truth, all we can actually do at any moment of our lives is to set an intention for ourselves. That's what this character has done in the song. I'm going to set my soul free. It's not future telling, and it's not fortune telling. It's not a prediction, and it's not a prophecy. It's an intention. In fact, this song lyric would be more logically accurate if it said, I'm going on down to Yadgar's farm with the intention of setting my soul free. And in fact, setting an intention is a powerful, deep, and important Jewish practice. In Hebrew, the word for intention in this context is kavanah. It comes from the infinitive lehitkaven, to have in mind, to direct, to aim for, to intend. I have long since known that setting an intention is a meaningful Jewish practice, and I've deepened my learning at IJS over the past 2 years and come to an even greater appreciation of the power of naming an intention and of speaking it out loud to the universe. There is, in Jewish tradition, deep power in setting an intention, in setting a kavanah. Setting a kavanah cannot guarantee an outcome, but it can guarantee the orientation of your own consciousness, your own awareness, the orientation of your heart and spirit, and ultimately of the energy that you put out into the world. In fact, it is a pervasive Jewish practice to set a kavanah, or an intention, when we offer prayers. We learn in the Mishnah, in Pirkei Avot 2:13, that we should not make our prayers keva, fixed, or rote, but rather we should always offer prayers with the intention, the kavanah of true compassion and humility. In other words, this Mishnah, this rabbinic text, says that our prayers should not be offered mindlessly by habit, but with a true and deep intention. Mishnah Menachot 13:11 makes the point even more explicitly when it says, it does not matter what offering we bring, cattle, bird, grain, whether the offering is large or small, so long as Sheyikaven Adam et dato l'shamayim. So long as one's intention is directed toward shamayim, toward heaven. In other words, this Mishnah is saying that it does not matter what we bring or how much of it we bring as an offering, so long as we do it for the sake of heaven. And I understand for the sake of heaven, l'shamayim, to be for the sake of a higher purpose, for the sake of the values of compassion, humility, justice, righteousness, and truth. There is another well-known teaching about Kavanah in the Zohar. The Zohar is the foundational text of Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, and this text essentially teaches that everything we do in life should be with the Kavanah, or the intention of reunifying or repairing this broken and fractured world in which we live. The Zohar itself teaches that the world is broken. God itself is in exile, and we as human beings can direct energy towards repairing this broken world and ultimately reunifying the different parts of God, the Kadosh Baruch Hu with the Shekhinah. In fact, the phrase that many of you may be familiar with, Tikkun Ha'olam, which many of us know as repair the world, is a phrase that is steeped in Jewish mysticism. And it first appears in the Zohar. In this original source context, Tikkun Olam is not about community service, and it's not about social action. It's actually a teaching about Kavanah, the intention with which we do things in this world. The Zohar teaches us that our intentions themselves can release holy sparks and repair some of the brokenness in this universe. The Zohar teaches us that unlike animals, we are in the unique position of being able to pursue our basic needs for food, shelter, and clothing with a consciousness and a consciousness orientation of our choosing. We can decide internally what our intention is for whatever action we are about to take in the world. Interesting Jewish teachings. My main takeaway from all of these Jewish teachings and ideas is that even though none of us can control the circumstances of our lives or the final outcome of our action, we can control our kavanah, our inner intention. It is no secret that we are in the middle of some pretty devastating global circumstances. And I know from talking with many of you, many members of Kerem Shalom are feeling a true sense of overwhelm in the face of the magnitude of the tragedy, problems, and brokenness in our world. Israel, Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Hezbollah, Iran, skyrocketing anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, continued war in Ukraine, global warming, hurricanes, flooding, North Carolina, Florida, an uncertain election season right around the corner, and more. All of these circumstances evoke questions and fears for many of us. The truth is, none of us knows what this next year holds in store for Mother Earth, for the Holy Land, for American democracy, or for that matter, our own personal lives. We cannot predict what losses we may endure, what diagnoses we may receive, what pain we may witness our loved ones burdened with, and so on. We cannot anticipate, nor can we control any of these things. None of us can individually solve these global crises that we all face. And yet so many of us, myself included, are mindful of the profound Jewish teaching in Pirkei Avot 2:16 that it is not incumbent upon us to finish the work, but neither are we free to neglect it. And so we are compelled, commanded this holy night to ask ourselves, what can we do? And whether what we can do makes any difference at all. According to a Jewish spiritual path, it is clear to me that there is something we can do and that it absolutely makes a difference. Specifically, we can learn to set a kavanah, an intention for ourselves and our action that will always be true, no matter what the external circumstances of our world or of our lives are. We cannot control whether our intention will actually change our external circumstances, but I guarantee you that it will change your inner experiences. And once we address our inner experiences, then perhaps, maybe, just maybe, we will have an even greater capacity to engage in further external action accordingly. Allow me to give you some examples. One thing that I have learned in my meditation practice with IJS is that it's very helpful to start very small. Those who are experienced at meditation know that before each meditation sit, one often sets an intention for oneself. The most commonly used intention is to set an intention to focus your awareness on your own breathing. It sounds so simple, right? Even the most experienced meditators will tell you how quickly that falls apart. You set an intention to focus only on your breathing for 10 minutes or even 5 minutes, and then you begin. And within a second or two of starting, your mind will begin to wander. Eventually, you'll notice that your mind has wandered, and then you gently and non-judgmentally return your attention to your intention and return your attention to your breathing in accordance with your kavanah. Other ways to start small include setting an intention for yourself before you take a bite of apple or of any food, really, to be thoughtful and aware of the extraordinary web of interconnection that allowed this food to arrive in your hand and to make its way into your body. The apple, let's say, started as a seed in the ground, underneath the earth, which grew into a tree, nurtured by water and sunlight and time, until it blossomed on the end of a branch. And then someone had to pluck it from the branch, unless you picked it yourself, and possibly set it on a journey in a box with many, many apples to be shipped, maybe across the globe, to be driven in a truck, to arrive in a store, to be stocked on a shelf for you to purchase, bring home, and wash and eat. How many people, how many components, how many mechanisms in this world are each of us completely dependent upon just for the privilege of taking a bite of an apple? If you are able to maintain your kavanah, your intention on being aware of this, it can lead you internally to a place of deep gratitude and deep appreciation. Or, let's play with one of my favorite kavanot. My favorite kavanah is the intention to make someone smile. My kids will tell you that it's one of my favorite games to play. Before I head into a store or a doctor's office or a coffee shop or a restaurant, I'll often pull my kids aside and say to them, let's see how many people we can make smile or laugh when we get in here. Ari, have I ever done this? Every time, thank you. If Sivan was there, I would ask her too. And Reina, we played this game many times. And I'll do this, by the way, even if we are rushing, stressed, or anxious. Because when I can do this, my behavior, my actions in the world is no longer driven by my inner anxiety and my inner stress. Instead, it is my kavanah, my intention that governed my language choices, my speech choices, and my action choices, my affect, and my demeanor. And when it works, oh my goodness, it is an extraordinary experience. Life is far too short to miss opportunities to evoke smiles and laughter whenever and wherever we can. Yes? These may feel like small examples, and they are small examples, but they are actually life practices that may help us to navigate hardships and foster feelings of inner peace and contentment. It is really important to practice setting covenant for ourselves every day so that this skill, and it is a skill, becomes second nature to us in moments when life circumstances and life events around us feel absolutely overwhelming, painful, frightening, and hard. I certainly do not know what is around the corner for all of us. It is entirely possible that things will get worse before they get better. So how do we prepare ourselves? How do we fortify ourselves for whatever the new year might bring? What can we do next? I recently came across a great quotation on social media, of course, written by a priest, actually, named Richard Rohr. And the quotation reads, "We feel arising within us this sustained declaration or covenant." He didn't say covenant, I say covenant. Or covenant, that we will live as beautifully, as bravely, and as kindly as we can for as long as we can, no matter how ugly, no matter how scary, no matter how mean this world becomes, even if failure and death seem inevitable. It doesn't really get much more intense than that, does it? So, my friends, I would like to gently suggest that in the face of the extraordinary challenges in front of the Jewish community, in front of humanity, and in front of our world, that our ability to set these intentions for ourselves has actually become even more important than ever. And if you can begin to do this, if you can set an intention for a moment, for a day, for your lifetime, if you can set an intention for your own purpose and for your own conduct, your experience of living will be deeper, richer, more mindful, and more thoughtful. And you will find yourself even more aware and connected to your own gift, to your own purpose, to what you and only you can bring to this moment and to this world. In Megillat Esther, the scroll of Esther, chapter 4, verse 14, Mordechai famously tells a very anxious Esther, "Mi yodea, im le'et kazot higat." Who knows? Perhaps you have arrived for just this very moment. What is your life's purpose, after all? What is your particular calling? And what is your kavanah, your intention? I had a moment many years ago in my apartment in Brooklyn. I must have been 25 or 26 years old, when I had a clear epiphany and received a loud call. And I was summoned at this moment to be a force for good in this world. I was called, the metaphor for me was to be a soldier in the army of light and of love. And I took a vow at that moment, on that night, that whatever I would do in my life, wherever I would go, whomever I would be with, I would devote myself to being a transformer, to transform negative energy in this world into positive energy. And I have held on to this kavanah over the years, and I have learned over the years to hold on to this kavanah for myself with increasing softness, gentleness, affection, and love for myself. I cannot control the outcome of my actions as much as I may want to, and sometimes I can barely remember my own kavanah. And when I forget, I lovingly and gently return my awareness to my breath, to my interconnection with all, and to my personal kavanah to transform negative energy into positive energy. And a Joni sings in this song, Woodstock, but you know, life is for learning. So if nothing else, I continue to grow, to evolve, and to learn. And so I would like to challenge all of us this holy evening to set an intention for ourselves on this new year. Each and every one of us in this room and on Zoom, myself included, can strive in this new year to be even a little bit more compassionate than we already are, a little bit more patient than we already are, a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more wise, a little bit more discerning, a little bit, just a little bit more willing to listen, truly listen and pause before we speak. Each of us can strive in this new year to be a little bit more generous than we already are, and even more generous of spirit. And I encourage all of us to set this kavanah, to set these kavanot, these intentions for ourselves, not self-critically, not to beat ourselves up and say we aren't good enough yet, we must be more. No. To do this patiently and lovingly, because we are human beings, and because the mind will wander, and we'll forget, and we'll get distracted, and that's okay. We can be gentle with ourselves and be loving to ourselves. And in doing so, if we can return to and remember our own kavanot, the intentions that we set for ourselves, we will transform ourselves. And if we transform ourselves, then little by little, we will transform our very small corner of the world. And maybe, no matter what happens on the global scale, no matter what happens in our external circumstances, maybe we can make someone else smile. And maybe we can help other people around us to feel seen, heard, witnessed, valued, and loved. And maybe we can create an inner peace and contentment for ourselves. And maybe, like the character in Woodstock says, we can set our souls free. Shana Tova u'metuka. May it be a good and sweet year for us all.